I can't be any more clear about this. I do not care that Kirk Herbstreit advised Dominic Raiola to send his son to Nebraska. Couldn't care less. And the reason for that is, and I think we lose sight of this at times in college football and really in life, there is a difference between Kirk Herbstreit, the ESPN college football analyst, Kirk Herbstreit, the college game day panelist, and Kirk Herbstreit, the dude who shares videos of his dog on Twitter. Kirk Herbstreit, just like me and you, is a dude at the end of the day. His profession, career, job, passions do not define him. And so if he wants to tell the father of the number one quarterback recruit, you should, if you want him to go to Nebraska, you should get him to Nebraska because that's going to be a good thing for him, then he can say that. It's not some grand conspiracy that ESPN's trying to damage. That doesn't make any sense anyway. Like the idea that Kirk Herbstreit, the college football analyst for ESPN, is trying to move one of the best players in the country away from playing his games on ESPN. It doesn't make any sense. So this is going to be a pretty short episode today because I just don't care. And I think we lose sight of the fact that just because somebody is on TV doesn't mean anything other than they're just a normal person. And we lose sight of that all the time. Like if you ever go through some of the responses to people on TV's tweets, it is the most vile, disgusting things that you could ever possibly imagine sending to someone, and it happens to like the lowest of TV people, let alone Kirk Herbstreit, who might be one of, if not the most high-profile ESPN football analyst that there is. Like outside of Stephen A. Smith, Mike Greenberg, who at ESPN has a higher profile than Kirk Herbstreit? There aren't many. And yet, at the end of the day, he's just a dude. And he's allowed to have thoughts, feelings, whatever the case may be, outside of being a college game day analyst, being the lead analyst for ESPN Saturday Night Football. There's a differentiator between who he is on the air and what he does in his free time. So if Dominic Raiola is going to say, like, hey, yeah, Kirk Herbstreit really talked us into this or whatever, I don't care. I don't care whether you're a Georgia fan, whether you're a Nebraska fan, whether you're a college football fan up in arms that the leading analyst in the sport is pulling strings. But Kirk Herbstreit is not a puppeteer. It's a ridiculous thought to have this idea that, and part of it is because he's still arguing with Florida State fans on Twitter that he is getting this rap, and I don't think it's fair or warranted. But the idea that like college football is somehow being operated from Kirk Herbstreit's phone. Not everything is a conspiracy theory. Not everybody is a victim in every scenario. Not everything is this gigantic problem that we need to have faux outrage over. Sometimes it's just like, oh, well, that's interesting. And I think that's what this is that if Kirk Herbstreit has a relationship with a dude and that guy says, like, what would you do if you were me? And he says, I'd send my son to Nebraska, where you went to college also, and where your brother is an assistant coach. The idea that the college football Illuminati and the Priory of Sion and the Masons all got together to try to rebuild Nebraska. It's just, what are we doing? Kirk Herbstreit is a dude on TV, part of his life. Otherwise, he's just a dude. He's got dogs like you. He's got a wife and kids like you. He's sitting at the island in his like sprawling mansion trying to figure out what the hell they're going to have for dinner on Thursday night, just like you. So this idea that he and ESPN as a whole are pulling the strings. I saw another conspiracy theory that, and I don't believe this, but that, ESPN already had a signed deal with Nick Saban that he was going to retire at the end of the 2023 season. They knew it was going to be the last hurrah for him this year, so they put Alabama into the playoff instead of Florida State. Who watched the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl and thought Florida State was the better of those two teams? Absolutely no one. Okay, great. Conspiracy theory solved. Now, I do think, and this is just a conspiracy theory, I don't actually believe this, but I do think it's fun to think about that. Do you remember at the college football playoff national championship game when David Pollack said to Nick Saban's face, like, Georgia is now the face of college football, like Georgia is the big dog on the block? And people lauded him for having the stones to say that, like, to Nick Saban, an active coach in that conference who had been at the top of the mountain for 15 years. And then David Pollack got fired. He didn't get fired, but he got laid off. It's the same thing. It's semantics, really. He got laid off. Now, I've told you here on this podcast for months that Nick Saban was going to be retiring at the end of the season and going to be the next analyst on College Game Day. Now, I just was correcting that. I'm good. But I joked that, like, hey, I think he said, hey, I'll do this, but you got to fire David Pollack. So it's a joke of a conspiracy theory. I don't actually believe that, but it would be kind of funny if that's how it went down, right? And then there are people who legitimately are like, ESPN's running college football. It's ridiculous. Like, okay, well, calm down. Nobody thought that Florida State was better than Alabama. It was always, the argument was always who was most deserving. It was never who the better team was. Everybody's point of contention was Florida State was more deserving than Alabama because they were an undefeated Power 5 champ. Nobody pounded the table and said, if Florida State and Alabama went head-to-head, Florida State would beat Alabama with a healthy Jordan Travis. Nobody ever said that. And I wonder why. Oh, because that's not the truth. So can we cut the conspiracy theory bullcrap, at least for ridiculous conspiracy theories? I'm here for fun conspiracy theories that make you think a little bit and make you ponder and be like, oh, you know what? That's kind of interesting to think about. But the ones that are just like, there's a deep state in college football. Stop it. Stop it right now. Cut it down. We're done with it. It's over with. Stop it. Kirk Herbstreit does not have some ulterior motive to enrich Fox, NBC, and CBS with Dylan Raiola for the next 3 years. It doesn't make any sense. And if you think that he's this master puppeteer who's lining up, I don't even, it's the dumbest conspiracy theory I've ever heard. So I don't give a damn if Kirk Herbstreit told somebody what he would do if he were that kid's dad. I don't care. It is a non-story. 9 times out of 9 times. Who cares? A guy had an opinion and he shared it with the person who asked him for it. The end. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out here on Saturday Glory. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. Be back at it on Sunday here on the Daily Huddle with Saturday Glory.